could ask John Robinson these same questions, and when you're picking at 26, you just don't know, because you don't know what's going to happen in front of you. You don't know what it's going to look like as your pick edges closer, and if you've got a grouping of players there, you could potentially move out. So there's just so many things in play, and which makes it fun. I mean, it's not just here. I mean, it's like that across the league. I mean, unless you're picking first, you really are at the mercy of a lot of people in front of you, and that's kind of why the Titans are doing homework on so many guys. That's why they've been to so many pro days and combines and senior bowls and all-star games, and that's what these guys love to do, and it's about time for the payoff.
Yeah, I love following the process for sure. Let me ask you this, because the number grows as more and more people put out their mock drafts. When you do the aggregate of all the mocks, it's 30 now, I think. It'll get bigger and bigger and bigger, and eventually you always put us local knuckleheads and everything else on there. Have you ever gone back and made like an Excel spreadsheet of who gets it right the most?
Well, I don't know if I've done it. I know I have not done it historically to see who gets it right the most. I will say that I think last year, when I did the roundup and included a lot of local media folks, and I did kind of go back and give people props there, and I do like a mailbag the day of the draft and let fans kind of pick their drafts, and so it is kind of fun to say who. It's fun to see who gets it right. I mean, obviously, some of these are throwing darts. I mean, people want to act like they nailed it. And believe me, I did the same thing when I was working at the Tennessean. I had to do a mock draft. I don't do them anymore, but I did a mock draft, and I remember when I got Vince Young right, and I got Marcus Mariota right, and I got Kenny Britt right, and I think I got several of them right when I worked the paper, but some of them were educated guesses. I mean, with the Mariota pick and the Vince Young pick, I mean, obviously you got to do some homework when you're picking two and you're picking three. But there were some that were Kenny Britt, I think, was 29, and I mean, I was fortunate to hit on that one. And then there are some of them that you end up looking foolish because a guy's pick like Pac-Man Jones that you never really had on your radar, and that's because people are telling you stories or steering you a different direction on some of these too. So that's just kind of the way it goes this time of year. You don't know who to believe if you even do have sources on this.
I may have had the biggest blunder of all time. I picked Christian Fulton in my mock when he came out, and they didn't take him till the second round.
But you got the name right.
I did get the name right.
Yeah, you can still claim out of the hit. Nobody's going to remember that.
There you go. I just had him higher on my draft board. Jim Wyatt, he's always high on our draft board, TennesseeTitans.com, our guest.
Well, Jim, for the record, I've never got any one of those right. Unfortunately, hey, I've seen that you guys have a local day, I guess, a workout. Maybe I'm just forgetting. I just don't recall that ever happening for the NFL. When did that start? And then were there any surprises there that you guys like, man, dang, that guy looks pretty decent. May bring him in for a free agent tryout.
Well, it's been going on for a while, and it's kind of, the rules are interesting because it's players who within a certain mile radius, right. And it dips into players who went to school, grew up here but went to school in other places, and you try to get as many of those guys to qualify as you can because they don't count against your 30. I mean, that's the benefit there. It's not just the Titans doing it; it's teams across the league. So you kind of get bonus picks. Now this year I didn't go to the one this year, and we have kind of handled it differently now compared to how we did maybe in years past. I remember the first year I was working for the team. I mean, not only I went to local day, but I think we put out the whole list of everybody that was there. It was 40, 50 guys on there, and then there were some years in the past where maybe attended and they were cool with me kind of talking to several of them, but you're certainly not putting out the whole list. And then we post a photo gallery, and some fans would try to ID these guys themselves. This year, it was even more close to the vest, I think. So, I can't really say who looked good, because I wasn't there the day they had it.
Well, I just want to make sure a guy that I trained for the combine that y'all make sure that he looked pretty good just because I trained him, right? His name was Alan George, cornerback from Vanderbilt, of course. I'm sure you know the name.
You know Jimmy knows that guy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So just make sure y'all give him a good, at least bring him in or something, man, just in case. What I do have to be serious all about, and that is the draft. And I'm talking about quarterback potential as far as drafting one. Do you think that probability could happen that they, draft a quarterback, whatever round that is, to bring in competition for Logan Woodside, who I'm sure has improved each and every year he's been on the team? Obviously, he's beat out some other veteran quarterbacks over the time, but at some point in time, we got to see him play, and I don't know if he'll ever get that opportunity. So do you think that the Titans would draft a quarterback in any round in this year's draft?
Well, I mean, it wouldn't shock me. I mean, and I say that because I say that also wanting to throw in the fact that, John Robinson, Mike Vay will continue to rave about Logan Woodside and him doing everything right. And they've kind of given Kevin Hogan some props, the guy they brought in here who played at Stanford, been around the league a little bit. I talked to both John and Mike about both those quarterbacks at the owners' meetings. They had good things to say. But, with that said, I mean, I do think at some point, you have got to maybe start developing somebody else that potentially would be here long term. And it's just a matter of whether or not they have identified somebody, and that could be early, that could be later, that they think is capable. And this team has done that, some in years past, and some of those guys didn't pan out. So it could happen. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if that happened, but, the truth is there's not a lot of positions picked in the draft that would be a shock to me. Like, I look at what the team needs, and I look at some of these, I look at the roster. I mean, I think receivers in play. Obviously, offensive line is in play. Tight end, I think, should be in play. Need depth, certainly, at a lot of positions on defense. And I think quarterback still. I mean, there's competition there, and I think they feel good about Woodside and Hogan. And certainly they've said a lot of good things about Tannehill, but that's an important position, and I guarantee they're doing homework on all those guys.
Well, speaking of all that, you just made me think about, over your time covering John Robinson and then working for him at the same time outside of the meeting rooms, when you watch who they've picked, what would you say is his philosophy on his first-round picks, his thought process, if you had to make an educated guess?
Well, I mean, just based on real recent history, is he's not afraid to take a guy that you might not get the bang out of immediately. I mean, that includes Jeffrey Simmons. I mean, that includes Caleb Farley. These guys got to the Titans, because they had lingering injuries that caused them to fall, and obviously they benefited greatly from that with Simmons. With Farley, time will tell, because he ended up getting another injury here, unfortunately. But I think that's one thing about him, is he is not afraid to think outside the box, not afraid to be patient. Now, can you afford to do that this year? I mean, obviously the big question is Jameson Williams and John Mechie, two guys that I really like out of Alabama. I mean, can you? And those guys had injuries that maybe they'll be back and able to help you this year. But we're in kind of a win now mode, and I think this team, without a second round pick, can you afford to take a first round pick that you might have to wait on? I wonder about that myself. But he's proven he can do it. So I mean, if there's one thing that stood out to me, that I think that would be it.
Man, I know you talked about receiver, O-line, or some of the needs, but after watching NWI improvement over the last couple of years, do you think that the team may feel a little more comfortable if they waited a little later, or do you, with Des Fitzpatrick and Racey McMath, who, show some upside, but there's a lot of work to be done, do you think they may, not take a receiver with that first pick?
I mean, I think it's funny, like when you're taking the field or taking one certain player, you're always safer to take the field, I guess. So I mean, I guess I'd say, there's definitely a possibility you could take someone outside a receiver with that first pick. I think this team has a big need at receiver still. I mean, I obviously you gotta love A.J. Brown. Plans to keep him long term. Robert Woods, I think, is really going to be a good player here. Everybody's raved about him. We've all seen him play. I like Nick Westbrook-Akina and everything he's done, his work ethic to make himself better. But after that, I mean, the guys you mentioned have big question marks, and you're one injury away from being, putting a guy out there who just has not played a lot and doesn't have a lot of experience, and that's whether that's McMath or whether it's just Patrick or who else is in the competition. I mean, there's several guys. Josh Malone's going to be in the competition. Mason Kinsey, Cody Hollister, but a lot of these guys I mentioned just don't have a lot of experience. So I think receiver is a high need, and it's just a matter of when you address it.
Well, with Jim Wyatt with TitansOnline.com.
Jimbo, it's interesting, and you got into some of those injured guys who would have a chance to offer some of that value that John Robinson seems to like so much. But with like Mechie, I went back and looked. He was hurt in December. And then, of course, Jameson Williams was hurt in January. And I was trying to run the timeline. Let's say you just pick one of those guys. That guy may not be available until, October, up to full speed, till maybe the middle of October, maybe November. And you've already got the same scenario with Robert Woods where he has the same injury. It just seems like if they draft a guy as great a value as one of those fellows might offer, Mechie a little bit later maybe than the first round, I think you would have to draft a guy who was physically able to just come in and go from the jump.
Yeah, and that's why you do wonder if you can afford to do it this year. I like Jameson Williams, just his speed, his ability to stretch the field. My daughter went to school at University of Alabama. She's still in grad school there, so I think I went and saw Alabama play down there. 3-4 times last year. I've seen him in person a ton. Both those guys in person. So really,
so it's Jim White / scout.
Yeah, man. I like that, dude. You have to double your pay.
I'd probably take Alan George first round, being a Vandy guy. So I have watched those guys. I love Mechie. I mean, just listening to him at the combine and just what he's all about. Not only as a ball player and ability to catch it, but also as a blocker and his mindset and just his story is great. I'd love to see Mechie on the team, but that's when you got to wonder about other things coming into play. Like he's not going at 26, not with the injury.
Right.
And so maybe if you get out at 26 and you move back and you got a second round pick, and then maybe that's where you can afford to take him again. And I think maybe you still can address it a couple of times. I still think there's some players in free agency that you could get you some extra depth in if you need a little bit more time. But I mean, Simmons, I think and everybody recovers differently, but I think Simmons hurt his ACL in February, maybe during some off-season training. Yeah. And then, if I'm not mistaken, ended up playing in October. So if Mechie did his in December, then, maybe he is ready for.
There we go. Everybody's
teasing ready for the beginning of the year. And I think Jameson Williams, I think his was a pretty clean. I shouldn't speculate on significance of injuries and how clean they are, but I was just saying I would never rule it out with John Robinson and never rule it out at a position of need.
You mentioned free agents. There's still some pretty good football players out there. I mean, every time the list comes out, there are 2 or 3 names. I'm like, I can't believe that guy's still available. It doesn't sound like you're unconvinced, and in reading the most recent mailbag, I don't think you're unconvinced that some of these veteran free agents might still wind up competing for a spot on this team.
Yeah, and I think you're getting close to a time, too, where, I think you're going to see maybe this free agency has kind of gone in waves. You had the first wave that really started before the free agency period opened up, and then you had a second wave that came once the market settled down a little bit and guys were trying to find a spot. And now we're getting ready to hit a time here over the next week or so where I think teams potentially could sign a couple of guys if you don't think you'll be able to get what you need in the draft, or if the draft maybe is not as strong as you think. And then I think you'll see other teams kind of stand pat and wait and see what they get, and then you start signing some guys right after the draft ends. So that kind of stuff could start to happen. I still think there's some guys on the team, some guys that have remained unsigned here that are still available that still could end up back with the team, kind of in a little bit of a holding pattern. Some of them, I think, of their time is kind of they'll probably move on from them. But then there are some other guys who have played for this team in the past that are still out there that wouldn't surprise me if they come back on 1-year deals and join the competition.
Jim Wyatt, our guest, TennesseeTitans.com.
Well, I only have one more question for you there, Jim, and it's more a philosophical question in, how the team approaches the playoffs, because I think that's where the difference is. During the regular season, you're able to run the football, and in the playoffs, it's not so much you have to depend on the quarterback. I know a lot of things happen, a lot of moving parts there with turnovers and everything else, but ultimately, you still haven't had that kind of success in the playoffs running the football. Do you think they will lean a little bit more to passing maybe throughout the regular season? And I know they try to stay balanced. It looks like every week 50-50, but do you lean more towards passing the football a little bit so you can be prepared to have that kind of success in throwing the football in the playoffs?
Well, I mean, I think some of it, obviously depends on just how effective Derek is in him coming back at full strength this year, because we didn't see him at full strength in the playoffs this past year. I mean, he would have needed more time to get there.
Well, we had the Ravens games the year before there, and he was healthy, all that. It's harder to run the football in the playoffs than it is in a regular season.
Yeah, I mean, I could certainly see it, and again, it depends on personnel. I mean, if you got the personnel to do it, then I think maybe open up a little bit more, and that includes maybe finding somebody who'd really be good and nifty in the slot, maybe another pass-catching receiver that could take some pressure off of Derek. I mean, obviously they didn't get, the team didn't get what it needed to out of Darrington Evans, but maybe you find somebody else who can do that, and that would allow you to throw it around a little bit more. Spread it around and be effective running it as well.
There you go. Jim Wyatt.
Jimbo, what's coming up next at TennesseeTitans.com? What can we look forward to reading over there?
Still some I've got some stuff left over from the owners meeting. A productive time to get time with the head coach and the GM. So I've got some draft related stuff, also some stories on individual players that I'm going to roll out here to get us up into the wheelhouse of, getting close to the draft. And then, we're not far away from having players back in the building at the start of at the start of off-season program next week, I should say. And I think the pre-draft press conference is next week. So, I mean, we're going to start having a lot of activity as the draft 2 weeks away from Thursday. So you're going to see us kind of turn up a little bit from the draft content perspective as well.
Yep. Jim Wyatt, not only covering the Titans, also a scout,
scouting players,
as well as he says he may help Washington with cooking the books.
No, you'll take no credit for that, I'm sure. Hey, Jimbo, thanks, man. It was great talking to you. At J Wyatt Sports, people need to jump on that train if they're not already on there. Thanks, buddy.
Okay, y'all have a great day.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
The great Jim
Appreciate
Wyatt.
you.
Titans running the ball. I got a great stat I've been sitting on. Yeah, they
usually are 50-50 in the games pretty much throughout the season. It's just it doesn't, the teams are better in the playoffs, so they can't. Even though they did run against Cincinnati, but man, it's just you got to, Tannehill and the passing game has to be a little bit more effective.
Well, this may lend to a little bit of predictability. I'll share this one with you next. It's from A to Z Sports. I've been holding it for you. Today's the day. That's coming up next. You don't want to miss it. Blaine and Mickey 1045 The Zone.
Bamboozled me.
Uh-huh. Blaine and Mickey 1045 The Zone. Got a bunch of Lipscomb students who just came through with our friend Pamela Furr and with the
Mickey
legend
was giving them some
Demetria.
great advice.
Actually, Blaine was dropping the advice on like crazy.
What was your biggest piece of advice?
With so many different tentacles now and things you can do in the industry, from doing what you do, Lucas, which I think is a really tough job, to doing your own podcast, doing a radio show, to being a writer. There's many facets, but I told him the best thing you can do is lend yourself to doing something that your personality is who you are. Don't try to be a radio person when you're kind of shy or you're not real talkative. Maybe you want to do something where you're kind of controlling everything, and maybe you want to be the writer or the person behind the scenes, but just make sure that you're doing something that fits who you are and doesn't change who you are. So that was kind of my whole deal, because if you want to start something, you got time to change as a youngster, just like Lucas, who's super talented at a lot of different things, but they don't know it, so they're trying to figure it out, because I felt like they were a little laid back and maybe just not outgoing as much you want them to be. So I had to give some advice. I did a Zoom call with some friends about this industry as well, and naturally I said I had a platform, just being a former athlete and speaking to the media all the time, from little, when I was little, from 10, 12, doing speaking engagements when I was younger to now. So I feel comfortable in that position. It doesn't make me nervous. It's almost like when the lights click on, it's time to go. Mm-hmm. So some people just aren't that way, and that's okay though. So there's other ways you can be part of this industry without doing that.
Sure. Oh, gosh, yes. It's a whole lot of really talented, smart people in this business who you don't ever hear their voice or see their face, right, but they make everything go.
You could actually be like someone's like our boss, You're not on air. Now, maybe at some point, maybe he was, or maybe he was telling everybody what to do back behind the scenes. So there's different avenues to get to where you want to be, and you want to enjoy what you do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Then it doesn't feel like work. That's kind of like how we are. We were talking about our taste buds and eating cold food or hot food.
All right, let's see how this tastes to you. This was I wrote this down forever ago. Evan Winter of A to Z Sports, per Sports Info Solutions, I guess that's where he said he got it. The Titans led the NFL on rushing attempts on first down. That's probably not surprising, but it was by a mile. You were talking about being less predictable. Because I found this after, just don't be so predictable. Mix it up a little bit. They had 276 running back designed rushing attempts on first down. The Browns were second with 234. That's 42 less first down rushing attempts where the running back just got the ball. It says, to put that into context, the difference between number 2 and number 27 on the list was 42 attempts. So to get from 2 to 27 was the same number as to get from 1 to 2. Yeah. The Titans were handing that bleeping ball, and it wasn't just to Derrick Henry last year. It was to him or to Foreman or Hilliard.
As I kept saying, it had nothing to do with Henry. It's the scheme.
It's what they do.
It's what they do.
Yep.
It was really clear as day, and you want somebody to fit that model. And that kind of zone scheme is kind of different for each back, and you can kind of pick your hole where you want to. Sometimes you can cut back. Sometimes you can stretch the hole and then cut back. Sometimes you can take it all the way around through the, I call it the C gap. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of different ways. Even though it's the same play, sometimes it doesn't look and feel the same. And I think that's how you can continually do that on first down. But what I can say, regular season is different than the playoffs. It's become clear to me every day watching the Titans the last 3 years. And they will not have that kind of success in the playoffs running the football. Now, to be honest, Cincinnati wasn't a great run-stopping team, and they still were able to run enough. That's probably the most I've ever seen them run,
right?
With having success. But you still needed to throw the football to be effective in this league. And I think that's where the team, and I've said this all of last season, even before last season, going into and I want to stick with the 50-50 model. I like it, but I think they just need to catch people off guard a little bit more on throwing what you're saying, like on first down. Sometimes you can get behind the chains, though, if you're incomplete. Then the second down, now you want to come back and try to run the football. Then they're going to blitz and do run blitzing schemes against that because they know that's who you are. That's your identity. So I think they feel just much more comfortable sticking with what they know and say, stop it. And if you can't stop it, why not just keep doing it? But I think when you get to the good teams and you get in the playoffs, you got to kind of shifted a little bit and used reverse psychology and used the pass game to set up the run game. And I just don't know if Vrabel and crew really want to do that with Henry in the backfield or whoever, just in a philosophy built on running the football. And it's funny that it seems like that's just, to me, unless you have an elite quarterback. Like, to me, the reason why I would also do that, I want to make Tannehill feel as comfortable as possible when we have to lean on him to carry us. And some people say, well, he can't. Well, guess what I want to find out if I'm the coach? I want to find out sooner than later if he can. And so I'm going to make sure I do it in the regular season as well. You're trying to stack up wins, but at the same time, you want to be able to lean on your quarterback to carry you at certain points of time, because throughout the season, there's going to be times you can't run the football.
Yeah.
But in the playoffs, it's pretty much guaranteed you're not going to be as effective.
Like you always say, because everybody's good in the playoffs.
Everybody's
good.
And,
they got
and
there
you may
for a
be able
reason.
to get by that first round,
Right.
But the second round, no can do. There's no way.
They got to buy, obviously, to get through the first round.
Right.
They played their way out of it. Against the Bengals, they threw it 24 and ran it 27.
See, they keep the balance. They stay right around it. That was a stat that I followed the most.
Yep.
And I always was like, dang, because I always felt coming out again, man, they ain't seem like they ran more. Or I come out, man, it felt like they threw more. Then I go look at the stat, man, up 40 to 59. I'm like, dang, they stick almost like they're counting it during the game, and I know they're not. They're just trying to stay balanced in their philosophy.
Well, they stayed balanced till the end. There's an interesting tweet from Warren Sharp, who is Sharp Football. He's one of those analytical guys, about the Titans' offensive line. And there's also a little news about potential offensive line visitor. So it's like there's a bunch of offensive line flags popping up, and I will share all of those next. There's a lot of stuff. It's next. Offensive line. 4!
It is 2:01. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica. Breaking news courtesy of Front Office Sports from earlier today. A congressional investigation of the Washington Commanders has identified a, quote, troubling, long-running, and potentially unlawful pattern of financial conduct. The allegations were sent to the Federal Trade Commission in a 20-page letter earlier today. The report goes on to state that over the course of a decade, the Commanders allegedly maintained two sets of books, one that was shared with the NFL but underreported certain ticket revenue, and another internal set of books that included the complete and accurate revenue and was shown only to owner Daniel Snyder. Huge game tonight for the Nashville Predators as they look to cling on to that first wild card spot in the Western Conference with 10 regular season games to go and back in Bridgestone Arena hosting the San Jose Sharks. Puck drop tonight is at 7 p.m. And a big day of college baseball in the state of Tennessee. Vanderbilt home at Hawkins Field hosting Western Kentucky, a 6 p.m. first pitch. And Tennessee taking on Tennessee Tech in Kodak at the home of the Smoky Stadium. And they'll be using wooden bats. First pitch at 5:30. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Let's do this, Blaine, and make you hour number 2. What's up, everybody? Happy Tuesday to you. Hour number 2 of the program. If you want to go back and catch the first hour via podcast, please do so. Jim Wyatt joined us. Lots of Titans talk and draft talk and mailbag talk from Jimmy Wyatt. You can catch the show via podcast anywhere you consume all of your favorites. Add us to the list along with all your favorite Zone TV shows. So I saw this yesterday that the Titans were getting a draft visit. Draft Network reported this. Trevor Penning is going to visit on the 19th. He is full-sized. He is 6'7", listed anywhere from like 225 to 230, Northern Iowa.
Right.
The Draft Network comped him to Taylor Lewan. That's his comp, Taylor Lewan, he's like 6'7", right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would give him 6'6", yeah.
So that was his draft comp from those guys.
Uh-oh.
He went to Northern Iowa. I'd heard this, and I looked it up. He went as like a tight end, defensive end, and he gained, I don't know if he gained 100 pounds, but he gained a bunch of pounds when he got there.
I'm going to make a comment real quick on that. But if he would have went to a bigger school, because I'm going to just throw this out here, Brad Hopkins went to Illinois at a tight end. They moved him there 2 years in, first round offensive tackle. And so if he was at a bigger school, he might have already been moved to a tight end initially when he got there. But he got to the right spot eventually. And that athleticism then transfers over to an elite level tackle. So don't people get it twisted because he went to a smaller school.
That's why I wrote that down, because I know you like those big guys with good feet. What do you say? I think Rhett calls him a dancing bear, like a giant guy with great feet, plays basketball, all that stuff.
You can tell as soon as they get on the court. Like Lewan is on that Richter scale of off the charts. You know, all these guys that play, Ruse to B-Hop, Brad Hopkins, to all the, elite tackles, blindside tackles. So, and this guy right here, we asked Jim Nagy about him. I did specifically for sure. And he said this guy's got a nasty mean streak about him. And it's like, do. Like, this is who he is. And he's like, that's how it's supposed to be. And he'll bury you and just walk away and keep coming back and want some more. I'm like, oh, that sounds like my kind of guy. That sounds like a Vrabel kind of guy.
It does. It really does.
I don't know if he's going to be there at 26, man. I know a lot of skilled people, but, if he is there, I'm telling you, this guy I would really like to get. I mean, it's just like Burks. I just don't think they're going to be there. I think the hype on them is people are going to get nervous and people are going to start moving to get their guy.
Yeah.
But if he's there, oh, wow. Ooh. John, I like him over some of the guys they're saying are the higher pick guys from Alabama, NC State. I really do. Yeah, because I think he has a total package. His upside is really big. I don't think he's reached his potential yet.
That's what's scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
John Robinson went to his pro day, so he has seen him up close, probably put the protector thing on and went out and whacked around on him like he does. So, he got a close look at him.
Wow.
This would be 3 straight years with a tackle taken in the first or second round. Should my TV be free of a brick if it happens again?
No, I think you're free this
year. It'd be Panda, it'd be Raiden, who he played guard some, but
Second round. Mm-hmm.
He's a tackle in college, and then this dude's a tackle, and he is a tackle at 6'7", 330 with, pterodactyl wings and everything else. 3 straight years, they would have taken a tackle in the first or second round.
Well, I really don't have an issue with that. It's just that the two of them haven't really worked out yet. One's not on the team, and one is still a work in progress. But when you think about the Titans, the Tennessee Titans football team, what do you think of?
You're running the ball behind big tackles like this dude.
Right. Yeah. And so it models their philosophy.
It does.
So it's okay because that's what they're trying to impose their will on their opponents. So I'm cool with the guy in the trenches if that's who you are. Now, if you were, throw it around the yard, and so I would be thinking you go draft, more skilled guys.
Right.
Naturally, you still got to protect the quarterback, but got to be able to run the football and protect. So it's a specialty deal. Super talented player. So I wouldn't mind him though. I've watched some video of him. I like him a lot. I trust Jim Nagy. Watched some Senior Bowl cut-ups. He said this guy's the real deal. I wouldn't mind this one. Over who did I say I wanted him to take? The wide receiver from North Dakota State? Ryan? No. I forgot his name. Christian Ryan.
Oh, Lucas, we've lost you in there.
The receiver from North Dakota State?
Christian Watson.
Thank you, sir.
Christian, what did he say?
Christian Watson.
Wow, Watson. I could say Ryan. I don't know why I want to think Ryan. Christian Watson. Yeah.
Well, you do know Chris Ryan.
I know.
AKA rabble-rouser.
Yeah, that's why I always go by numbers. You're watching those film all day. I can tell you his number was 7, but I couldn't even. Hey, what is?
No, that's funny. People will bring up somebody who played 30 years ago, and you'll be like, oh, yeah, it's number 31. Yeah, you'll immediately say his number. You got that down.
Yeah. Van Egan.
Yeah. Mark Van Egan. That's a good pull. That's me that usually does that. What are you doing?
Yeah, I know, man.
The Raiders fullback from Colgate.
I just forgot it.
No, dude, he's 31 from Colgate.
I know, from the Raiders.
He was a check it. See if I'm right. Mark Van Egan, Raiders
Lucas
fullback.
said he doesn't get our old man.
I'm just shocked Colgate has football.
Colgate. And not the toothpaste. Check and see if I'm right.
Yeah, was that during the Stabler time or no?
Yeah,
it was. Okay.
They had.
I think that's when I finally started watching ball, and I just remember him because they were always on TV. And
they had him and Pete Banaszak. They basically had 2 fullbacks.
Oh, okay.
So he was number 40.
What was the name? Mark
Van Egan. Mark Van Egan. Tell me if I'm right.
He can't spell it.
Well, you just start Googling.
Oh my goodness, that is a crazy last name.
They've never heard of this guy.
Where'd he go to school?
He went to Colgate. It was a third-round pick. It was a third-round pick in what year?
I would have never guessed that.
That's really testing your limits.
74?
Yeah, 74.
What?
Take a lap.
Oh, my. He's pumped up like he just hit a home run or something, man. He jumped out of his chair.
Sweating.
Where are you every time I've been to sports trivia?
Yeah, I told we supposed to have a segment with Mickey and actually doing music.
Yeah.
And you could control all the music back there and try to get him to guess the name or the year it came out.
We can start doing that. I'd love to start
really
doing
love that segment because I just think you would shine on that, man.
Is it cheating if I bring you to sports trivia with me? I feel like that's got to be like some type of performance enhancer.
I don't know, man. I would just feel cool if I was hanging out with you and your friends. If you bring like a dad-aged guy. They'd be like, hey, man, who's the really old dude with Lucas and Blue? I don't know. Maybe that's Lucas's dad.
We had before at Bourbon Street Blues and Boogie Bar, but we got to get out to some sports
you left
trivia.
before I played. You didn't see me play that night with our guy,
I
Bam.
I was there the night you played.
It's like it never happened. I did play with those guys, but nobody stayed to see me. This is from Sharp Football.
You got to hype it up, man.
I know.
Mickey needs to get a hype guy. That's what it is. Because you got to tell people you can't just show up and then nobody knows you were going to be there.
I'm zero hype guy.
I think if we showed up, the 3 of us showed up to a sports trivia night somewhere, like in hoodies and sunglasses, so nobody could see us and say that it's cheating, I think we could do pretty well. Win a gift card or something.
Win a gift card.
I don't know.
We could win a gift card or something.
I don't know if I do so well. I don't know.
They're not going to ask.
It's kind of like sitting on your couch, you could do really good on Wheel of Fortune, but when you get there live, it's a little bit different.
That's a good point.
I think my wife is a guru with that. I'm like, man, you get there, you would freeze up.
She can win everything. I've only seen one episode of Wheel of Fortune ever that I thought I could have beaten those 3 stiffs. Yeah. That was actually like 2 weeks ago. It's the worst Wheel of Fortune I've ever seen.
Do y'all ever just watch Jeopardy and just try to see how much of it you get?
Oh,
it's on Netflix. There's so many episodes on Netflix.
They just have old episodes.
Oh, so many.
Oh my gosh. This is a stat that I teased. Warren Sharp Football. This is the Titans O-line. He just tweeted this out of the blue.
Warren Sharp.
Titans, he's at Sharp Football. He's one of those analytics
guys. Is he related
guys.
to Warren Sharp?
He is Warren Sharp.
I mean, Warren Sapp.
He is so related to himself. Titans O-line. He says left tackle Taylor Lewan hasn't played a full season since 2017.
That's been my big riff.
Left guard Aaron Brewer has allowed the most sacks. He allowed the most sacks of any remaining O-lineman on the team. Aaron Brewer.
Okay.
He allowed the most sacks of any guy that's left on the team.
Make sure I see him next time at the gym. I would say that.
Hey, man, pump it up. Ben Jones is the 10th best center per Pro Football Focus, he says.
We're going to go fishing.
Nate Davis, right guard, ranked 75th of 94 guards in pressure rate allowed.
Oh, he needs me to train him on the basketball court.
And this is a small sample size right here. He's saying right tackle Dylan Radins allowed a 14.3 pressure rate. Remember, he only played the one game, which was ranked 111th out of 111 qualifying tackles. That's what they're rolling with. That's why I'm saying they're going to draft this giant if he's available.
They have to take an offensive lineman. We know they are.
I'm already mentally prepared for it.
Oh, I am too.
Yeah.
All right, every time I say that, I want a receiver, but I know they're going to take an offensive lineman. Because they have to, really, to me. But that's why I was asking Jim Wyatt, with Titans Online, what is John Robinson's philosophy on first round? And so when I'm asking that, I'm wanting to know, is it to take the best value pick? Because he can use the injuries, but in his mind, and John Robinson, JR, is that I got great value.
Yeah.
So that's telling me he likes value picks. Well, if a guy's not injured, or can he not, which is what you asked, not afford to take an injured guy this season because he needs help right away, where does he go? Typically, if he does take a person that is not injured, does he take the highest player on his board? Does he take need pick, what they need? Or does it combine? It's the need and the value, or what, et cetera. I mean, whatever. I mean, what is his deal? Because I haven't gotten it right since he's been the general manager.
Yeah.
As far as even position. And so, because I'm always probably looking at need, where it looks like he's drafting not only high value, but he's getting the best graded player on his board. And that's why I think when people say linebackers, I'm not going to throw it out the window.
Right.
Because if it's the highest graded guy he's got on his board that's there, I think he'd take him.
Yeah, N'Kobe Dean is there, and that's his highest rated guy. Yeah.
He's going to think, I'm getting great value here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I had this guy rated 18th, and I can get him at 26. Turn in the card. Yeah. That's the guy. Yeah, I think it's value. Because every year we always say, my gosh, they got to have a blank. And they never take that guy in the first round.
Never. Mm-hmm.
I mean,
and a lot of teams do that in the first pick. And that, to me, that's how you have some whiffs, though.
Yeah.
But their upside, if you do hit, is off the charts. So it's because of their athleticism. It's like they are, we can go down the list of the guys I play with, their freak of natures. We just mentioned B-Hop, Eddie George, the freak. I mean, all the Bullock, all these guys, they not the guys just walking up the street and you go like, hey, man, that guy's a good football player. No, that was the guy they talking about me. These dudes right here, that upside window is just up there and you don't even know if they can get there.
Yeah.
There's some other intangible things they got to have with them, hard work, smart, to make them what you think they can become. But, here in this day and age, sometimes they never reach it. Well, for whatever reason, whether it's injury or just didn't have the mentality, didn't love football.
Right.
There's a lot of different things that could happen. But
game gets real complicated for some guys at that level.
But I'm always gravitate to the guy who shows that as well as all those other intangibles and leadership. And that usually is the second round guy who's really ends up being a better player just because he has
A.J.
that
Brown, Derrick Henry.
Right.
Yeah. Look at Derrick Henry's workout videos, for goodness sakes. We're going to work out a commercial break. All right, when we come back, Patrick Brown, 24/7 Sports, GoVols247. All the latest on recruiting, spring scrimmage in the books. There's a lot to get to with Patrick. We will do that next on Blaine and Mickey.
Yeah, Lewan missed for more than concussions.
Mark is very active in the Zone TV chat. He's talking about we got into some Titans O-line stuff and injuries. Warren Sharp, who is Sharp Football, had kind of gone down the Titans' offensive line, and it was some discouraging numbers.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about Lawan. He missed. We weren't just talking about the season. I think you said since 2019, last 3 years.
Yeah, one of the stats was that he hadn't started all the games in a season since 2017.
17, wow.
And it was 20. He did in 2017.
Right.
Then in 2018 he missed 1. In 2019 he missed 4. In 2020 he missed 11, and then last year he missed 4.
Okay.
So he has missed, I think we did the math, 19 games in the last 3 years via a suspension or via an injury or whatever it might be.
Concussion as the chat there during this past season. Yeah.
So
concussion, back, knee, all above.
Which kind of leads me to believe.
So that's who you're going with?
Dylan Radins?
No, for the first pick.
Oh, sorry, not Dylan Radins. Trevor Penny.
That's who you're going with?
As of right now, today, 100%. That's who I'm going with. Now, he may not. Anytime you mention somebody's name, we'll get 5 tweets and somebody say, that guy will never be available. Like if Lucas said right now, I love Traylon Burks, we'd get 5 tweets.
Oh,
that
I
guy's
love
not
a
going
whole
to be
bunch
available.
of people, but just who's going to be there? That's what I'm trying to guess.
That's what's so hard at 26.
Watson. That's I'm going with. That's why
You're going with the guy from South Dakota.
No, North Dakota State.
No, is he North Dakota?
North Dakota State.
He's from one of the Dakota. North Dakota.
Yeah, same place as Dylan Radins.
The green and yellow.
Yeah,
okay. Not the Jackrabbits.
Yeah.
All right, I got to get my Dakota straightened up.
Go Jackrabbits.
South. Go Jackrabbits, says the Lucas Panzica.
Yeah, I think he'll be available. That's why I'm going with him.
Well,
I want him to take a wide receiver. I want to watch this. I want all offensive linemen taken in the draft. But
one tight end, and the rest just split it between O-line and receiver. Maybe that would get it done. One cornerback.
This is why I strike out every time on the first round pick. Wait a minute. First of all, since you got to make this even more efficient, we got to get Lucas on who he thinks is going to be the first pick for the Titans at 26 if they stay there.
Can I think on it? And then after we talk to Patrick Brown?
Let's ask Patrick Brown. Then we'll interview Patrick Brown about Vol stuff. Then we'll come back to Lucas.
We always see when he tries to avoid answering questions.
I know. He's passing the buck. All right, well, let's put the heat on Patrick.
Guard, man. I thought he was a quick thinker.
Patrick joins us now at Pete Brown 24/7. Go Vols 24/7. All right, Patrick, we'll put you on the hot seat. A non-Vols question. Who is your current pick at 26 for the Titans? We'll just really put the screws to you.
Just make it easy, one of the Vols. Oh, no. The Jackrabbits got him. No reception.
Hey, Patrick, are you there?
Mm-mm. Give him the dial tone there, Lucas.
He's long gone. All right.
He got it. He's in his big mansion down in the corner in his office, and he doesn't get good reception. There.
Yeah, he's gone. Patrick Brown of Go Vols 24/7. All right, eventually we will talk to him. We will ask him about this stuff.
Yeah, but that's who I'm going with, man. There's a part of me I really wish they could trade back and still maybe stay in the first round, just maybe the last pick or the last 2 or 3 picks.
Detroit's got the last pick.
And so maybe they trade with them. They want to move up, and then you get your first and a second, wherever it's at. I don't even care if it's high or low. I just want a second-round pick.
Yeah.
I'd go for it, but I don't know. I probably wouldn't be real good at negotiating, moving back and up and down on my picks.
All right, I think we can pick.
I think they pre-do those negotiations, by the way. I really do.
Oh,
it's not
it's too many moving parts to do it the day of.
I think that's why the Saints and the Eagles did the draft, because they know one of those teams are going to try to use it as collateral to move up or down again. So they couldn't wait.
Yeah. Well, I bet he would like to move back for sure. Let's move back to the phones again and try to get Patrick Brown. Patrick, have we got you now?
I hope so.
Ooh, oh, that sounds good. Yeah, that's clear, man.
Okay.
All right. You're on the clock at 26 for the Titans. Are you prepared to make your selection?
I'm going to defer to whoever Lucas picks.
Oh, man.
Both of you.
We are out there in the universe on this.
Avoiding questions. Lucas did not answer, by the way, Patrick. So you could have went easy and just picked a Vol. Just any one of them. This is going to get
Velus Jones.
Yeah, just Velus Jones.
Give me Tyler Smith out of Tulsa.
Tyler Smith.
Sounds like you need something.
That's offensive guard or tackle.
Yeah, that's a tackle.
Yes. Well, let's do this. Let's talk some Vols.
Nope.
Nico Iamalieva. Nico Iamalieva.
Ah, there it is.
There it is. Nico Iamalieva.
I know when I hear it.
That dude is a rock star, man. He was called by Andy Staples a walking brand and content churning machine, and he sure seems to be all those things. I hope he's a great football player too, because all the other stuff is there.
Yeah, it was interesting to see. I was not at the high school over here where that 7-on-7 tournament was, where apparently it was like the Beatles were in town. From talking to Ryan Callahan, our recruiting guy who was over there. I did see him at practice yesterday morning, and it was very low key because he was just kind of there with a couple of his people, and you know, he didn't have the vibrant pajama pants on, and was just kind of watching practice. And at one point, I think Josh Heupel and Alex Golis, the offensive coordinator, as they were transitioning from one drill or one period to the next, came over and said, "Hey," real fast, and it was like it was just really low key, and it was interesting to see that after seeing or hearing about some of the what happened this weekend with apparently a lot of people were out there, a lot of people taking pictures with them, and Cam Newton was out there at one point with his 7-on-7 team talking to him. So, he's obviously the big name right now, and everybody's around here seems to be excited about landing him and what he's going to be when he gets here way down the road.
Well, with that being said, I just want to add this. Man, I feel like this brand is becoming bigger than life itself, and I feel for high school kids because some of it just unrealistic, because he could come in and not do so well. As we know, he needs to put on some weight and do some other different things. The next thing you know, he got an NIL deal. Then he's trying to get other players to go there, and all of a sudden he gets there and he's just okay. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but, man, are we setting these kids up for failure eventually? Because all I can think about is Harrison Bailey, and there was a lot of hype around him. Granted, he wasn't as big as a name or a star that this player is, but it's just like, man, can we pump the brake? Can we even slow this down, or just there's no way around that?
Shoot, it may be too off the rails already, to be honest. But that's what you're pointing out, and I think that's, when we get down the road here, I think Josh Heupel would, once Nico signs and he can talk about him, it's going to be like, let's everybody remember this guy's a freshman. He's new. He's got a long way to go. I mean, and coaches usually do that for a lot of different positions, a lot of different newcomers. When there's a guy that was highly rated or was a big time recruit or was a big time maybe decision that maybe they won on signing day or whatever. So the hype is going to be it's going to be too much, but how he handles it and how he goes about it is going to be really intriguing to watch, just to see if he can, because even at this point, several months before he's even going to sign, he's arguably a celebrity, and anytime he's here and is around town, he's going to be a lot of people are going to be taking notice and wanting pictures and wanting things like that, and just from seeing from a distance, he seems kind of low key and seems to be fine with it. So maybe that will help that transition and when he does get here.
Well, I would make sure that $1 million you contribute to his $10 million NIL deal that he plays sooner than later. Just kidding.
That's the thing with NIL stuff is if that's the figure for him. I mean, if guys are making a lot more coming in, then it's still ultimately going to get down to
football
playing, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, and we saw that a little bit last year with guys who, at this point a year ago, Tennessee didn't have any so-called maybe marketable, big name guys, but now they've got a few of those guys. Probably Hendon Hooker's probably the biggest one, and I'm sure that Cedric Tillman too are guys that you have to sort of play your way. Some of those big time recruits are going to be like that maybe right off the bat, but over time I think guys are going to have to earn it, and guys that have success on Saturdays are going to be much more marketable and things like that from an NIL standpoint, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Got Patrick Brown on with us, GoVols247. You can find him on Twitter at pbrown247.
Well, naturally, Patrick, man, they had a scrimmage. Can you tell us something about it? Were you able to attend? How did the whole process? I know it rained, didn't it?
It was sunny when we got there. At one point, it was snowing for like 15 minutes.
Oh, my.
Springtime.
It was very bizarre. And the scrimmage was sort of bizarre too, just because there were so many guys Tennessee didn't have. It's hard to really take too much from it. Spring football is usually a lot of times about individual improvement, individual progress, and certainly there's some guys that in that setting showed some things, but in terms of big picture takeaways, it's just hard because they didn't have 3 tight ends. They had 1 scholarship cornerback. They've had 2 scholarship cornerbacks really all spring, so. Because we have guys out with injuries or guys recovering from off-season stuff. We only saw like 2 series of Hendon Hooker. Cedric Tillman was out. Jabari Small's been out. So just a long list of guys that makes it hard to put too much into what you saw. But, the first team offense did, go down the field to open the scrimmage. So that was one of the series that Hooker did get. And then you saw just some young guys flash, on the defensive line. Tyree Russ was the guy that stood out. He's a freshman, was a top 247 guy, a 4-star guy that they beat up Florida State to get. Again, he's going against the third team offensive line, and he's going against another freshman. So don't need to put him as maybe an all-SEC freshman guy just yet. But he was a standout. That's what you're looking for in those settings is who's a standout. And again, it's a lot like a spring game. Where sometimes people maybe put too much stock into it when it's really, from a coaching standpoint, it's just one of 15 practices that you're evaluating over time. But some of the question marks are still there. With the depth on the offensive line, I think the secondary, as we talked about, that is how that's going to play out is impossible to know at this point with everybody coming back from injury. They've got 1 transfer committed. Maybe they get another one here. Down the road, we'll see. But it's tough to take too much out of it, but
what about Jalen Hyde? Is he improving? Is he inside, outside? I know he was trying to develop his body, and he kind of made some comments that he needed to, step it up and improve on his past year.
Jalen was quiet in the scrimmage. He had a couple of situations where they got the football out to him on the perimeter and sort of try to get him in a one-on-one situation. He couldn't make a guy miss, but. Does that mean he's not going to play well this season? That's sort of the trade-off here. Is it's one day. Maybe he's, I think he's had a better spring than maybe he showed in that setting. And he's also a guy that's really rededicated himself. And as you mentioned, he talked pretty openly about that last week. Just how last year didn't go well for him, and he needed to change really everything about his approach. So he's tried to spend all of his time in the complex, work hard. He's put on 20 pounds, and that was something he needed to do, was play more physical and play with more strength. And I think he looks a little bit stronger. And again, that's, I think there's been positive signs here. He's to me, he's the favorite to kind of take over for Velus Jones in that slot position, where obviously there was, Velus was pretty productive last season. So that there's plays to be made there, and Hyatt is trying to put himself in position to be that guy when they get to the fall.
Yeah, I know we got some prospects in to visit. Can you just name a few who kind of stood out that raised eyebrows? Even some commits as well, right?
Yes, Tennessee got the commitment from Nathan Robinson, the defensive lineman from Greenbrier, in the state yesterday. Obviously, I think the 2 big names over the weekend were Carnell Tate, who's a wide receiver, and also Kyler Casper, who was a wide receiver from out in Arizona. Obviously, those guys, when you have a 5-star quarterback committed, it's easier to get those big time receivers on the horn, right? Get them to campus. But they had some other guys too. I think Rico Walker was one of the bigger names on that they had, and they tried to make the best of it with the weather as it was, and a lot of these other SEC programs are having spring games since he's not having that, so they tried to make the most of what they could by bringing in a list of guys this weekend. And obviously, anytime you're going to try to set up a big weekend, anytime you can get Nico on campus, just because he's such a draw. Kind of circling back to him, just recruits want to play with other big time players, and certainly when you've got a guy like that, he's it's going to maybe make guys be more inclined to listen that maybe otherwise wouldn't be.
Well, with Patrick Brown, GoVols247.
Yeah, it sounds like Nico has turned into maybe the best recruiter that Josh Heupel's got. He's calling guys out by name, trying to land them.
Yeah, again, that's why that's such a landmark commitment to get, because he's a guy that you can sell to other players as this is going to be a guy that's going to play for us, and he's obviously talented. He's one of the best players in the class, and like I said, you always see it. I've seen it for a long time. Good players want to play with other good players, and certainly that's a big selling point when you got a guy like that.
Wanted to ask you about Jawan Mitchell. I think everybody expected a lot from him last year. He gets hurt. I guess he's been in a yellow jersey for the whole spring, no contact. Is there a thought behind the scenes on him? Like, my gosh, if we could get this guy healthy, he could be a super help. Or is there thought behind the scenes like, this guy's probably never going to get healthy and we're just not going to be able to get that much out of him?
Well, it's interesting you asked about Juwan because he's a guy, again, like you said, that was when they landed him last year, he was going to be like the biggest transfer they got, right?
Yeah.
He had led Texas in transfers. They had no linebackers like all spring. They had lost Henry Toto and Forrest Crouch to the transfer portal, and they went elsewhere. So, and it didn't really pan out because I don't think Juwan was healthy at all when he got here. And then they only got 3 games out of him before he went on the shelf to undergo shoulder surgery, which is why he's still off limits from contact and not doing 11-on-11 work. So, and there was a time after he was had the surgery where it was unsure if he would even be back just because the buy-in wasn't there. I don't know how committed he was or how, you never really saw him like even on the sideline for games. Guys get injured, for home games at least, they're wearing their jerseys and maybe sweatpants or whatever. You never saw him over there. So you wondered, okay, where is he? What's his status? But it does seem like since, really, I think the bowl game is when, you saw him around the team in Nashville. It looked like he was more committed to being around his teammates, supporting them, even though he couldn't play. And I think that's carried over into this offseason. And if they can get him not only healthy, but keep him sort of locked in and bought into the team and the program, I think he's definitely a guy that can help them at linebacker because, the production has been there. He's played at a Power 5 level. He's played, started, I think, 13 games maybe over 2 seasons for Texas. So he's a guy that's experienced and produced at this level. And, they need more guys at linebacker that can do that. And certainly so if they can get him healthy and keep him sort of on that path to being locked in and committed. And Brian Jean-Marie, their linebackers coach last week, was pretty honest in saying that, that attitude was not right, not where it needed to be last year, but it is now. And so if they can keep Mitchell on that path, I think he's a guy that can sort of, I don't want to say be like a new pickup at linebacker, but he's a guy that you only got 3 games and maybe 8 tackles out of last season that could certainly play a bigger role if those things, are there going into this season.
Yeah, that guy healthy and engaged would seem like just a huge addition to a defense that it felt like punched above its weight all season last year. So, yeah, he seems like he'd be a really nice addition. Again, healthy and engaged. Patrick, fantastic stuff, man. You guys are always putting out great content at GoVols247. At PBrown247. People can follow you there, of course, at GoVols247. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. Patrick Brown. All right, when we come back, that old tricky Arthur Smith, he's at it again. He is at it again. We'll tell you what we're talking about next.
Still our player.
Yep. I don't even know if we should play the Titans breaking news sounder or just breaking news.
No,
we
got it.
The
But that's not Titans breaking news.
BBVNS, the Blaine Bishop breaking news signal.
Oh, okay.
That's what I prefer. The BBBN.
But it's not Titans breaking news.
BBB.
Former Titan breaking news.
Yeah, Anthony Ferkser will sign with, we all saw this coming, the Atlanta Falcons. They have announced, we have signed tight end Anthony Ferkser. This didn't get broken by anybody but the Falcons.
He says, guess what? I'll show you how. What you had last season, you got me running the show. You're going to be just like it was when I was there. You and Rashawn. Even though I wasn't running the defense. But guess who was? Dean Pease.
And Bo Brinkley.
Yeah.
And Bo Brinkley. Yeah. Oh, I remember that. Yeah, Bo Brinkley. Yeah, man. He's going with proven players, knows who they are and what they can and cannot do. Their weaknesses. Mm-hmm. So good for him.
And what's your thing was let him go back to his weight that he plays the best at.
Yeah.
And let him go back to doing what he did.
When everybody was saying Ferkser was better than Jonnu Smith, I didn't know that was a PR move and they really believed that, or they were saying that because there was no choice because Jonnu Smith left. And I was like, because they kept saying, well, their stats about the same. You know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
Stop that. He is not as talented as Jonnu Smith. I'm sorry. I kept saying I don't know if I agree with that one. Statistically, now he does have a position, and to me, his skill set was he was a movable route running tight end.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was really a modern day, poor man's version of Frank Wycheck. Let's give him that. All righty. Because he's a good little player, but he was never going to be Jonnu Smith. They tried to put weight on him and make him something he was. Now, he'd already been in the league. Don't try to make him something that he's not. So I'm not a real big proponent of that, and I think they did, and I really messed him up. I know he got nicked up in preseason, and then he never got back right. He really didn't hit a flow till the last 3-4 weeks of the season.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of crazy to, think about what he was doing last year. And he kind of lost a little mojo and a little bit of confidence, too, at the same time because the team had moved on without him and was having still success. So, I think he'll go back to probably opposite, a real great tight end, Pittman, who's really a wide receiver.
Yeah.
In my mind, when you watch him, you better put a DB on him.
He was one of those people you were talking about earlier.
Special.
Like there was a mold for one of those, and God made him and then threw the mold away. There's one of those.
Yeah, every year, usually you're hoping there's one of those guys. Every year it's tight end. It's not always. Not a tight end, But so, so hopefully he has success there. Great guy. Unfortunately, didn't work out that way here. So, where do the Titans go? Do they try to bring in another playmaker, or do they stick with a tight end, or do they bring in another tight end? I'm sure they're going to draft one. So they have a lot of options in this offense. But I wish him the best, and hopefully he'll have success there in Atlanta. And I'm sure it was a one-year deal, and keep it moving, and then show what he can do in the receiving end of it. That's what he is.
I just remember him coming up. And he never dropped balls. That was the thing about him. And he didn't drop balls in practice, and he started playing, and he caught 19 of his 20 targets in 2018 when he came up. That became like this running thing of keeping track of him not dropping a ball. He caught 19 of 20. Then the next year he caught 14 of 24. But then 2020 was kind of his year. He caught 39 balls on 53 targets, 387 yards. And it's like, oh, okay, this dude's found his niche. Like that's Arthur Smith, and then Arthur.
Well, then they thought, okay, now he can be our regular tight end.
John is gone.
Right.
Let's make this guy.
They had the same numbers as stat-wise. It was somewhere thereabout, whether it was targets or yardage.
And physically, like night and day.
Yeah,
like two
totally
different people.
Totally different.
Jonnu looked like a statue.
Yeah. So that was, not to say that Ferkser's not a real good player, but if you're going to try to compare those two, if you were doing a draft, Ferkser would be way down the list, and Jonnu would be at the top.
Yeah,
and because you're drafting on athletic intangibles and everything else. Dude played running back. Remember that one game he ran? You remember that?
Yeah,
he ran like 70 yards or something. It was long anyway. I was like, dang, I think he could play running back.
He just. You kind of hinted at this a couple times. If things don't work out this year in New England,
they're gonna cut him. We're gonna sign him right back.
hey man, come on back.
I've only heard Vrabel talk about certain players, and he was one of them. Like he reveled over everything about this guy, kind of like he does A.J. Brown.
Yeah,
maybe a little bit different, but still the same in the sense that you're talking about a player you really like them just as a person. So that's why I say Jonnu Smith, ultimately, you don't know what's going to happen after a year when his contract is up, if A.J. Brown's going to be here or not, or if they tag him, what have you. So naturally, you want all great players to stay on your team. Someone on this chat here, Pruitt is injured, by the way. He had surgery, I think, on his ankle. Did he do what Delaney Walker did? Like dislocate his ankle? I'm not sure. I don't know.
It was a nasty injury.
It was dislocated.
It looked really bad.
It was the thing where his leg came up
and he was pointing the other way. That's the same as Delaney Walker.
Yeah, dislocated.
So that's going to be a tough one. He's younger, so that's going to be a tough one. So he's going to be out there in free agency maybe halfway through the season. Somebody picks him up, if not the Titans. But
because they'd already let him go once and went to San Francisco, and they got him after they cut him before the season.
Now, this is a player, Pruitt, before he got injured, I kind of undervalue how much impact he had with the team. In my opinion, he won the Seattle game.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is it was the air of cockiness and confidence that he played with in that game.
Yep.
That when he made a couple catches and it kind of bulldozed some dudes and got in their heads, it really changed the momentum of that game.
Yep.
I had never seen that by a role player. And that was like, whoa, and he did it with it was like, this is what I do.
Yeah, he did.
And from that point on, I kind of looked at him a little bit differently. So, yeah, I undervalued him. I felt like he was a replaceable player, and he is to a certain extent, but he was better than I thought he was. It's really unfortunate because I thought he was coming into his own, that he had this, this injury, and he may not even get signed.
He had 3 catches for 43 yards in that game you're talking about.
Yeah.
But like Blaine said, every one of them was like mattered.
And he was running people over. He was on their sideline first down. They were getting pissed. The defense, they were getting pissed. It was pretty clear. Dudes was getting up, pushing them. He was like, what? And he would get in their face like, okay, you get the penalty. I think he got a penalty on one of them.
Yeah.
Man, I loved it. I was like, oh, that's my kind of dude. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can tell his teammates, they rally around that guy.
They did. They really did. I'm like, I'm exaggerating. He didn't win the game, but he changed the momentum of that game. Yeah, he did.
Sometimes
besides, the long run by the game,
right?
The great catch by Julio that they didn't call. But
sometimes it's somebody needs to make a play. He made the play. Ooh, we got to make a play though. We got to play our way out of here. 3HL coming up next. Going to talk Preds tomorrow, and we're also going to talk NFL with Jordan DeJani and Alex Doherty, the Preds guy. So you don't want to go anywhere.
In the meantime, in between time, as always, Mickey.
Yes, sir.
Peace.